Hello again, everybody, and welcome to WrestleLine. I'm your host, John Scott, and we are doing WrestleMania 36 Night 2. And I'm pleased to say on the line now, back again. I haven't had him on since probably the Wrestling Skull podcast days, which was some time ago now. But the king himself, RJ Singh, how are you doing? And obviously, we're living in very difficult times, but how are you doing nonetheless?
Not too bad, thank you, mate. Very, very strange times indeed we're living in. Staying at home, hashtag stay at home. We are living in strange times indeed. And I think the fact that we're able to still talk about WrestleMania is incredible in itself, because I think obviously, at some point we had to entertain the fact there might not have been one. And the fact that, I kind of set this out to people a couple of weeks ago of should WrestleMania have been postponed? I asked lots of people that. Yeah. It was a real mixed bag, so, and I think straight off the bat, to preface anything that we say, on this podcast, is that I think an incredible job was done. I've got to be honest. I think an incredible job was done. Whether it was the right call or not, I think time will tell. Because I think there is still that argument that actually, you could have postponed it. It could have been pushed back. It could have, we could have had it another time.
Sure.
But I think for what we were presented under the circumstances we were given, I thought a very, very good job was done very well all round. So.
Yeah, fair point. I checked one of your pictures out, which I was just laughing my head off at. Is the shot that you posted where you was watching the show, how basically WWE wrestlers watch the TV screen. Well, that was excellent.
I've got to give credit to Nyla Rose. I don't know if you saw her. I think about a week ago, Nyla Rose, she put a video on her Twitter of her standing side on watching AEW. So a little bit of inspiration.
Maybe there's a unique experience that you get from watching it that way.
That's it, absolutely.
It might have its positives. We're going to talk about night 2 here. Obviously, from night 1, I think the biggest thing that came out of it was the Boneyard match. That seems to have been, I would say, at least 95% positive. All the feedback I've seen on it, which could have gone horribly wrong, or like it has done now. But I do think there was a bit of a thin line, because obviously they did pre-tape a lot of this stuff, and they would have watched it back and maybe they were thinking, is this going to go down well or not? They must have had faith in it to put it on at the end. But what was your takeaway from that one? That was, as a wrestler yourself, was you quite enthralled by it like the rest of us?
I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was brilliantly done. And for the majority of people, I guess a lot of people had to, and I said this actually, just WrestleMania in general this year was, I think the hardest thing was reprogramming your brain to watch what you were watching, because WrestleMania didn't look like any, and wrestling in general that we've been watching on TV the last couple of weeks doesn't look like wrestling that we've had 100 years of in our brain. So, and I think straight away with that one, it smacked very much of the TNA Hardy broken mat stuff. Which I read that Jeremy Borash, who's a fantastic guy, he directed a lot of that, had a lot of input into that. So it made it was no surprise really to when you saw what was produced. I loved it though. I thought it was like. It was like watching, it was like watching a movie, and I kind of really was into it. I thought it was great. Funnily enough, anecdotally, my wife happened to look up at that point as I was watching the Boneyard match, and she was like, what are you watching? I was like, it's just WrestleMania. She went, that's not wrestling. And I was like, no, it is. I was like, it is. It just looks different. I was like, what do you think wrestling is? And her quote was, wrestling is two guys in a ring manhandling each other. She went, this is just a fight. And I was like, no, it's meant to be a fight. And I kind of, at that point, I gave up trying to explain it to her. But no, I thought it was very done, very cinematic. I kind of liked the Undertaker that was presented, because it wasn't Dead Man, it wasn't Biker Taker. It was kind of like this hybrid of like those two plus Mark Calloway himself, and you had this kind of hybrid version of Taker, which I thought was great. And I thought it was done really well. I thought it was really enjoyable to watch. And I think a lot of people sort of dug it because actually they're like, you know what, you could, if you're going to do Taker matches like this for a couple more years, you could. It's not obviously that what they presented isn't as taxing as the kind of wrestling that we see on TV. So a lot of people were sort of down for it as something that the Undertaker could do going forward. But I thought it was really enjoyable. I really liked it. I love sort of. I thought AJ Styles was brilliant, and I do hope more people give AJ Styles more credit. A lot of people talked about the Undertaker in that match, but actually you have to give AJ Styles a lot of credit for his performance in that match, which I thought was brilliant. Just especially at the end where he's sort of snivelling and like pleading not to be buried, and that moment there though. Although my favourite moment, I think someone brought up, is that bit at the end where Undertaker drove off and he raised his fist and the roof was on fire. And I was isn't Carl Anderson still up there?
Yeah.
which
no one's good. Talking about Carl Anderson.
No, that's it. We saw Luke Gallows on the floor, didn't we, as he came down the ladder and whatnot. But I was like, I'm pretty sure Carl Anderson's still on the roof. So, but no, really enjoyable. I thought it was different. It needed to be different. I think we needed something different to break up that empty arena wrestling that we'd been watching 2 hours of. Mm-hmm. And I think it was the perfect thing to break it up.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I was surprised going into it. I was a little bit worried because I haven't always been a fan of these sort of like House of Horrors and stuff like that in the past. But I felt they did this really well, and little things that I was happy about. First of all, the fact they didn't have commentators for it, which always takes me out of stuff like that when they do play-by-play. And secondly, that they didn't turn up in like full-blown wrestling gear like Randy Orton did one year, which I could never get out of my mind. Just how he turned up in a limo, driven out all that way, but was still in like full wrestling gear for some reason, like the video game. But no, it was very well done, and like you say, it was a nice bit of variety to add in. So night two, obviously, there was a lot of expectations on it. Mainly, I would say on the everyone was waiting for the Firefly Funhouse match, I think, after seeing that. But we had a pre-show match. Now I know off air we discussed this. That's the only match you didn't see, but that was between Liv Morgan and Natalya. And I'm kind of it's good in a way because I think Natty holds some crazy record about consecutive WrestleMania appearances, so it just held up in there a little bit. Even though it was the pre-show, she still gets to say that. And Liv Morgan going over in that one in about 6 minutes 30 seconds. A decent match. The only thing I'll say about it, I've gotten in my notes, was smiling. There was loads of smiling going through. It wasn't talking, it was smiling. Like, there was some sort of communication, like intensive interaction going on between these two, and it was very odd. But other than that, it was a decent match for a pre-show anyway. And as we start the show, obviously we get the same sort of opening that we got on the night one, like Stephanie McMahon's there, and we've smiling, glimmering, and now we're on the night two. By the way, what did you make, just before we go into this, about having two nights? Did that work better for you, and would you prefer that going forward?
Absolutely. For me, I mean, generally, I don't tend to stay up to watch WrestleMania, and that's not a snobby thing. That's just a tired thing. I find it really.
I'm with you.
I find it really hard. Anyone who's a new dad will appreciate what I'm saying here. So I generally, I think that. I'm trying to remember the last time I stayed up for a wrestle. Did Roman Reigns and Triple H wrestle at WrestleMania once?
They did, yeah.
3 years ago. I think that was the last one I tried to stay up for.
Yeah. And
I didn't make it to the main event. I was so tired. I had to go. But that was like the first time they'd done like the real sort of nearly 7 hour WrestleMania, and I found that really difficult to stay up for. So I really liked the two parters. I found it so much more digestible to have night one and night two. I don't know whether that would work live. Would it? Maybe. I don't know if they can do 2 nights at a stadium or whatever, but I'd be really interested. I don't know. Yeah, I liked it though personally. I thought it was nice. It was a nice way to digest, all that wrestling over two courses, as it were. So definitely.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I much preferred the shorter in both time scales, because I think to have all of this on one night would have been a real stretch for me. Watching all this over that. But anyway, we open up our first match with the NXT Women's Championship match. This is probably one going into the whole thing that I was quite looking forward to on paper, I would say. But again, the atmosphere, the vibe that you get from not having an audience always does have a big effect on how these matches play off. So we got Rhea O'Reilly, of course. Rhea O'Reilly. What am I talking about?
Blimey.
Yeah, Rhea. I'm getting her up there already. She's getting pushed. Rhea Ripley up against Charlotte, and I've got to say, I'm a massive Charlotte Flair fan. I know a lot of people, especially on this podcast, give her a lot of flack because they say she's been given everything handed to her. But again, I do think she feeds into that. She is a heel.
Yeah.
That's kind of her job. So,
thing is though, I've seen that a lot, and I saw a lot of moaning coming out of this, and people sort of saying, "Oh, Charlotte didn't need the win," and do you know what? Charlotte's like, she's hands down one of the best wrestlers in the world. Like, male, female aside, she is just one of the best. She is just hands down one of the best. She is consistent in her performances. She is the measuring stick as far as I'm concerned. In the women's, when you talk about any women's wrestling, Charlotte is the measuring stick. She really is. So I didn't have a problem with her going over. I think it's a great. I think there's loads of places they can go from here. Because you imagine now, people, like I said, for anyone who's moaning that Charlotte won, think about the person who does beat her for the NXT title. That's the thing you've got to remember. When someone beats her for that, it's going to be a massive deal, and that person, is going to be really elevated. For the match itself, I thought it was great. They walloped the stuffing out of each other.
Yeah, very physical.
Very hard hitting match, and I really enjoyed it. And they're both, both quite athletic, physically powerful women. As well, it was like for me, it was like two Amazons going at each other, which I thought was fantastic. And no, I think it's great. I like the idea of Charlotte kind of being the person who's held every title and like that. And and I think and what I like actually is that there's still a bit of wiggle room for Charlotte to go, because obviously there's the NXT UK women's title. Wouldn't that be great? Having Charlotte versus Kaylee Ray would be amazing.
Yeah.
And Charlotte hasn't held the women's tag titles either, so that's another place for her to go as well. So but like I said, her gimmick is like the most decorated female superstar. So I think it's great. And and obviously like Rhea Ripley is a star on the rise, and I don't think it hurt her not to win that match. I think I think she proved she can hold her own, and I think it's, she's still got a great future ahead of her. So.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I had no problems. I actually felt all the way through in the week that Charlotte was going to go over anyway, and it will only help the NXT brand as well if she stays on there, depending on what happens like when they get back for normal TV, shall we say. But I think it's the right decision. Plus, Rhea, she can chase. Sometimes the chase is always better than the catch anyway. So she's quite new still. So
absolutely. And to be fair, look, she's already been. She was the inaugural NXT UK Women's Champion, which is a massive deal. And her herself, she's got loads of miles still to go. So one thing I meant to say is I like the dynamic, because it felt like she was the underdog despite being the champion. She was still the underdog going in, and I quite like the dynamic. It was different. So.
Yeah, no, totally. But it's good. So Charlotte defeating Rhea Ripley. Match that actually got just under 21 minutes there. So it was a decent time that they got for this match, which was good. And obviously that coming via submission. But no problems with that from my end. A good opener to the show in a way. Again, just a bit of a shame that they didn't have the crowd there. I'll probably say that all the way through this thing. But you know what I mean? Like it's, I'm pretty sure that would have played out really well, because Rhea Ripley is so over on this run, and it's just a bit of a shame because Charlotte's so good at working that heel style with anybody. So next up we have Aleister Black against Bobby Lashley. Now this is one of those matches that was sort of thrown together quite sort of last minute, probably because of when they were doing these tapings, these two were just available. So we didn't have a tremendous build to this. And obviously there were a few sort of small bits of rumours about what could potentially happen in this and stuff like that, like where they were going. I actually picked Lashley to go over this at the beginning of the week just because I kind of sensed that maybe for a change, now he's played this ridiculous storyline out for a while, which is totally not Bobby. But maybe now he's done that, he's a bit more of a commodity for WWE, so they might push him towards some sort of main event run with somebody a little bit bigger, even Drew or something for a little bit. But it wasn't to be. They went with Aleister Black, a guy that